Went to learn another mimer in this sefer about the Frierdiker Rebbe's visit to Chicago. This mimer we went to learn was said on the day of the anniversary of the previous Rebbe's passing on 10th of Shvat, and before it was known as the anniversary of the previous Rebbe's passing, was also the anniversary of the passing of his grandmother, Rebbetzin Rivka, the wife of the Rebbe Marash. So let's get right to it. This mimer is based on a pasuk, a teaching of the Gemara. You should not begin to pray unless you are first in a state of kovid reish. Kovid reish usually means to be very serious, maybe to daven, to be earnest. And this mimer is going to explain what that means. What is the meaning of standing to pray with a state of seriousness? Another place in Gemara it says you should stand to pray with joy, and in Shulchan Aruch and Code of Jewish Law it says when you begin to pray you're supposed to think about certain verses, like for example, a pasuk in Ashrei, how Hashem always listens to us when we call out to Him, how Hashem listens to us as soon as we ask for things, and you should begin to pray with a sense of joy that you're sure Hashem is listening to you. At the same time, the Gemara says you're supposed to pray with a sense of seriousness. So in Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that there's a time during the week where you should focus on self-introspection on Thursday night, and in general, in the morning you can't really switch so quickly from being a state of seriousness and introspection to a state of joy. He says once a week on Thursday night be introspective, and the rest of the time in the morning focus on the joy. But here we're going to see another take on the meaning of kovid reish, and let's go right to it. What is the meaning of the word kovid reish? Literally, kovid reish means heaviness of the head. Don't pray to Hashem unless you haven't had your coffee yet. That's what it sounds like. So as you haven't had your coffee yet, you have a heavy head and you have a headache. Now you're ready to daven. Obviously, it's not what it means. So Rashi zokt as kovid reish minachlav shiflus. Rashi says heaviness of the head means a sense of humility, a sense of lowliness. We're using two words. Rashi employs the words hachna and the word shiflus, which sound very similar in their translation: humility and lowliness. So the Rebbe is going to tell us that they're different, and they have similarities, but they're different. Hachna, humility, it means to be humble because of something physical, and shiflus, lowliness, is more appropriate in a spiritual context. Hachna and shiflus have been these two forms of kovid reish have different causes which cause them to happen. Different things will bring them out. The reason why a person is in a state of hachna is because of something that happened to his body, or something that happened to things which are more earthy, things which are more physical. In a next page, a person is crushed because of something that happened to him in a material way, in a very physical way. God forbid something happens to someone's children or his parnasa or to his health, so that causes him to become subdued. As we see clearly, as a field, even someone who is a strong person and has inborn strength. I was going to first explain to us what strength means, and then we're going to go back to how even this person who is strong, when something happens to his parnasa or to his health or to his children, he becomes subdued. Last week I was by this doctor. Oh, it should be a crime. The doctor says, your children, I think I told you, your children are suffering. The doctors want to tell you bad news. They say, this is telling me this. This test is telling me this. I never heard that before. This expression, I know that's what they do sometimes, these doctors. This is telling me, this examination is telling me your son has myopia. So I'm like, what is myopia? Oh my God. Yeah, nearsighted. Like, okay. So scary. Anyways, so even when someone is a strong person and he has inborn strength, resilience, gestarkeit is nicht. Strength is not a good trait or a bad trait. Nor is but comparing it to weakness, strength is considered something better. There are some people which are naturally very weak. This weakness is not in their limbs of their body, that they can't bench press too many pounds. It's not that their body's limbs are weak, nor rather weakness of spirit. What is weakness of spirit? When he wants something, he wants it in a weak way. The next page. And therefore, even when he actually does desire something, he may not actually make a move to get what he wants. And even if he does make a move, he makes a move in a weak way, because he's a weak person. So even when he wants something, first of all, I want it, so what? I wanted something else, and he gives it up. But even if he does have the courage to actually make the first move, his move is a weak move. Or if he decides this thing isn't good for me, I don't want this, his saying I don't want it is also weak. And even though he doesn't want to do it, it's very easy to convince him to do it. He says, I don't want to, but you don't want to. And if he has someone influencing him, he will change his mind. When Isaiah is in Alts, is that Isaiah Shvach. So in everything, this guy is very weak. When he wants something, it's weak, and he doesn't want something. He says, I don't want to do this. This also is both yeah und nid and bayim gleich. Both his yes and his no are the same. His yes is weak and his no is weak. So it's the same kind of thing. It's a very marshmallow dick. Nor der gleich von Jon names by him nit mitzad and verstand. The reason why he is weak is not because his logic that's fueling his yes and fueling his no is weak. He has actually substantial reasons for saying yes and substantial reasons for saying no, and they're resolute. Those are resolute reasons why this should be okay and this should be not okay. So why is it weak? Why is his decision weak? The reason why he's weak is not because the reasons, the logic, and what made him make those decisions is weak. Rather, it's because of his nature itself is weak. His logic, he understands really well why this thing is really good and this thing isn't. Next page. Because of the weakness of his nature, he's weak. Both to do what he does want and not to do what he doesn't want. It's his nature is weak. So it's not that the logic that he has that's motivating him is weak. It's absolutely clear to him why you should do A and why you shouldn't do B, but his nature is weak, and therefore he doesn't really carry through in his decisions. Compare him to someone who has a strong nature. Whatever he wants with power. Whatever he doesn't want, he also doesn't want it, and there's a force there. There are super principles in our character, and then there are offshoots. Strength and weakness are auxiliary attributes. They're not the source of the actual. They're not their actual principal character traits. They're just sort of like accessory character traits. There is what's machstel here, like a safer.
No coffee.
But you know what you could do? You have instant coffee. There is no coffee destined in this place for you that's not instant. Sorry.
I'll go to McDonald's after.
How about okay. I think you should go for instant coffee. That's what I would say. Okay. We learned about different things in our makeup. We looked at a few discourses ago about fire, water, wind, and earth. Morning. And we learned about how, in addition to those different character traits, fire, water, wind, and earth, is also there's 10 spheres, there's 10 different soul powers. So now we're saying that these 10 soul powers also have, want to take a safer? It's free. There's also an auxiliary attribute, and that is that each of these things could be weak or strong. Like you, for example, Mark, you were asking me last week about chapter 3 in Tanya. You were asking about the 7 doubles. Remember that? The author speaks about the 3 mothers and the 7 doubles.
Yes.
So one of the reasons why they're called doubles, the 7 character traits are called doubles, because each of them could exist in a strong way or in a weak way. So that's what we're saying in this course here. Some people, they have that kindness or rejection, whatever the character trait is, they can exist in 2 different planes. You could have say yes, and it's a weak yes. You could say no, it's a weak no, or conversely, it could be strong. Depends upon your nature. On page 103, these character traits of weakness or strength of character are only auxiliary attributes. They just implement what the other attributes are dictating. They are only servicing that which those primary attributes are dictating. Love and reverence are principal attributes. Those are part of your actual soul. But strength and weakness, those are only auxiliary attributes that help carry out what you're afraid of or what you love to actually make that happen. I'm not sure if what the Rebbe is referring to is netzach or not, but in general, Chassidus says that there is the Zohar says that there is gufa, and there's a varmi gufa. There is the body itself of the soul, so to speak, and there is what's lower than the body. So the principal character traits are the most important ones are chesed, gvur, and tiferes. And then there's netzach and yesod, which carry through that which you love, that's what you fear, and you can actually go the extra mile to get what you love, or not get what you, or stay away from that what you're afraid of. So netzach and yesod are carrying through on those decisions. So it could be that netzach and yesod, how much netzach you have means how strong you are, how strong your character is. It could be that's what the Rebbe is referring to, but it doesn't name netzach and yesod over here by name. So it could be something else. But either way, he says that there are some people which are weak, some people which are strong, and although they have the same decision and the same reason for their decisions, one of them is going to make that decision with weakness, other will make with power. Is in the tzvei mi is taken chalishus. Is taken mida chalishus chalishus. I know to our Western ears, it sounds like strength is really a great thing, and weakness is terrible. But the Rebbe says that neither of them are considered a good character trait. It's just that strength is better than weakness. Chalishus is a feel when the tut ya was medar ton is as aben mit chalishus, because when you're in a state of weakness, so that's your character. If you're a weak person, even when you do what you're supposed to, you do it with a weak-willed manner. However, teikif is when a tut of us medar ton is as mit starkheit. However, teikif, if you have strength, whatever you do is with the strength. When Hashem has blessed someone with a resolute nature, a gebor nishtarkeit, an innate resolve, that whenever he does it with a great resoluteness. Even this person who is so strong, when God forbid Hashem breaks him in something material, the crying, he becomes poor. Someone in his family gets sick. So even though this person is so strong, but when he gets a patch, when he gets a hit in his gesund, hit in his health, hit in his parnasa, he becomes subdued. So in short, what do we say in this first chapter of this discourse? Kitzer, page 105. Hachna is Zebrachenkeit and Shiflus is Erupgefallenkeit. Hachna means humility, and shiflus means lowliness. These are 2 powers in the soul which have 2 different causes. The The reason for a person having hachna, being subdued, is because he got broken in something material, something that hurt his children or his health or his parnasa chas v'shalom. I feel even someone who has a very strong nature versus givisi in yon mistake of among when in certain things having strength is a great virtue. Is despite that, when he gets hit and broken in something physical chas v'shalom, he gets subdued. So that's the end of the first chapter. Just want to point out that Rebbe says that strength of character is sometimes a virtue. When do you think it's not a virtue? Strength of character is always a virtue. You feel a yes is a yes, a no is a no. When is that strength not a virtue?
Wrong.
Huh? If you're wrong. The Rebbe actually says even if you're right. It says in Gemara, a person should always be soft like a reed and even soft like a reed, never hard like a cedar. Even when you're right, the Rebbe says you shouldn't be hard like a cedar. You should be soft like a reed. You should be hard like a cedar. If you're right, you should go all the way. Right? You should stay strong. So there's a difference between some people have shock absorbers.
President Teddy
You know, a shock absorber. A shock absorber. Some people, when you drive on the road, like you feel every bump in the road. Some people, they don't feel every bump in the road when they drive because they have shock absorbers in their car, right?
Right.
Some people also in life, when they have this tiniest thing that not the way they want it, right away they go from 0 to 60 and they get right away upset when things aren't the way they want them to be, right? Some people are softer and they're able to handle different things that aren't the way they want them to. So toikef, strength, is a great thing when you have a mitzvah you want to do and you want to go all the way in that mitzvah. But socially, it could be a fault. It could be a fault that you're trying to engage with someone and you're not able to engage with them because you have your opinion, they have their opinion. You can't even hear the other opinion because you want this to be a certain way. So like it's whatever you want is abrasive. Whatever you want is. Ari doesn't agree. Okay, no problem. Tell me why. Anyway, but in general, the Rebbe says that there are many things that strength is a good character, and many things it's not. But either way, whether you have a strong nature or a weak nature, when you get hit, you get hit. I think another important point over here, Stam, just to say this, a lot of things which you learn very parenthetically. Here we're seeing an amazing thing that you think you have a reason to do something, and you agree this is the right thing to do, and yet because of where you are, you won't carry through with it. It's not because of the logic that you have is missing something. You have perfectly sound reasons to make the next step. But another thing that you need in order to carry through, and that is you need to be strong in what you're doing. As we learned a few weeks ago, being strong means that you're not just. There's a line we learned in Pirkei Avos. The line is, when the place there are no men, try to be a man. If you're not a man, then you're not a man. What do you mean try to be a man? Or there's another place in Pirkei Avos. Use the expression Pirkei Avos, a gibor, a mighty person. Mighty person, the Chassidus says, doesn't mean someone who can bench press a lot of pounds. A mighty person is someone who's able to bring out their inner strength. That's the meaning of might. Might means you're able to access your inner koichas, your inner strength. Everyone has it. Hashem gives an neshama inner strength. But toikef, power means you're able to bring that out. Not everyone can bring that out. Perhaps that's related to the Maimer Limp before, that when you think about what's really going on, what the playing field is, so then that summons inner strength to that. Anyways, so that's the meaning of hachna. It's the first word that Rashi uses to describe kovid reish. Hachna means that you're broken. Why are you broken? You're broken because of something physical. Now we're going to go to shiflus, next chapter. Another meaning of kovid reish is, now why are you lowly? Not because of something physical, but because of something spiritual. The cause of shiflus is also brokenness, but not crushing the body spiritually. Thus, when you get broken physically, that causes you to have hachna, not shiflus. Middle Rebbe said that when a poor person recounts in his mind all of his difficulties, he doesn't need to think too deeply for him to start crying. Immediately he thinks about where he is, starts to cry. Take from Yad Vir dem Mont Zacham sein Dalus und on kein Shum Überlebung und Vertiefung, as the moment he remembers his poverty, without any experience, without any depth, just remembering what state he's in. He cries immediately from the depth of his heart with great bitterness. And he becomes subdued in a way that's recognizable. Every movement you see in him, this guy just going through that memory, he's become completely transformed and totally broken. That's what achno is. The shvira is next page of the 107. The shvira is the symbol from the shiftless is nikin gashmistic shvira, but the kind of brokenness that shiftless is about is not being broken because of something physical, something that affected your health, or your parnasa. Rather, it's a spiritual thing that breaks the person to become totally humbled. He feels lower than everybody else. He feels when he's in a state of shiftless that everybody, even a simple person, is higher than him. This haste, as a chutz dem was zetem von zweiten dann leite von sich. Besides the fact that he sees the good in others and he sees a negative in himself, is there magdal dem Satan's tevon dein native. He says the other person's good is more. He sees that with a magnifying glass. And he sees his own faults also in a magnifying glass. The previous episode said, we discussed on Shabbos, the previous episode said that in the Sefer Torah, there are three sizes of the letters. There are average size letters, small letters, and big letters. The previous episode says that also a human being, a Jew, is compared to a Torah. And you have faults and you have virtues. So he says your deficiencies, you have to see with big letters. And your virtues, you should see with some small letters. And someone else's virtues, you should see with big letters. And their faults you should see with small letters. So that's what kind of person does that? Someone who is very humbled. When he thinks about the other person's virtues and he thinks about his own faults, that brings him to be very low-spirited. But this lowliness of spirit is not noticed in his body. Unlike when he gets hurt in Parnasa, then you could see it in his body, his physical features, his mannerisms are changing. When he becomes upset about something that affected his spiritually, he just feels lower than other people. He feels like he's missing something spiritually. It's not as noticeable. By the infinite, it's not as noticeable as when he gets hurt in Parnasa or in Gesund. Rather, it's a state of the spiritual dejection. He becomes meek. It makes him bitter. He's bitter about where he is spiritually. He's saying there's a positive thing about this. There was a woman in Russia, in Odessa, who spoke to Rabbi Shapiro when he visited Russia. Rabbi Shapiro is the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshiva Dale Miami. And the Rebbe sent him once to go to Russia. When he went to Russia, he visited this lady in Odessa, and she told him in a matter-of-fact way about the baby that she had. A baby was born around Yom Kippur time, a little before Yom Kippur, a few weeks before Yom Kippur, and he had visited them around Purim time. And she said, he asked her about the bris of the child. There's no male in Odessa, so how did she get the child to have a circumcision? So she said, what they do usually in cities where there's no male, they wait till the child is a little older, so the child can travel and the mother can travel, and they bring the child to a place to see which has a male. But she said to Rabbi Shapiro, naturally, but how could he not have a bris before Yom Kippur? How could he do that a bris before Yom Kippur? But she said she took a train, a 24-hour train, to go from Odessa to Moscow, and she went right after she gave birth because she just felt, how can I go without a circumcision? And she took the child to a male in Moscow, and the second the child had a bris, she went right back on the train, went 24 hours back to Odessa. So then he asked her, which mikveh do you use? There's no mikveh in Odessa. So she says she goes to the Black Sea. The Black, yeah. Yeah, the Black Sea. It's very cold, freezing cold. And that's what she does. He asks her, how can you go? It's freezing cold. She says, well, of course, what else am I supposed to do? So Ray Shapiro was very, very touched by this. And when he reported to the Rebbe about his trip, he didn't mention the story, even though he's very touched. He just forgot to mention the story. So but he wanted the Rebbe to hear it right away. So he called the Rebbe's secretary, Big Groner, and asked Big Groner to relate to the Rebbe these stories. So the Rebbe said to Big Groner, tell him he should tell this story to the local Bali Mesiras Nefesh, to the local people in town who say that they're Bali Mesiras Nefesh. They're the ones who are sacrificed for Yiddishkeit. Tell these stories to the local guys. They should realize what real Mesiras Nefesh is, in other words. So I'm saying this story in context of what we're learning about over here, that there's hachna and there's shiflus. There's being broken in a physical, bodily way, that something affects your health, and think about this lady who she was broken in a physical way because she just had a baby. But what made her go the extra mile or beyond the extra mile to go on that train and bring her child to have a bris before Yom Kippur, she felt like my child's not gonna have a bris before Yom Kippur. It's a different kind of feeling. It's a different kind of humility. It's a whole different sense. That's shiflus. That's shiflus. She feels my child's missing a bris. It's not a physical. Having a baby that's a physical phenomena. But her need that the child should have a bris, that's a ruchnistic brokenness. My child needs a bris. That's something else.
Where are we going with all this stuff? I mean, okay, I hear what you're saying. What's the point of all this?
We're talking about, but before davening, preceding davening, there needs to be a sense of lowliness and humility. And we're in the middle of the subject. We haven't finished it yet. We started this discourse describing what exactly is lowliness and what is humility and how is that relevant before davening. That's where we're going.
This is only for davening, before davening.
For davening, right?